This is On the Subject, the show discussing film, TV, and beyond, with your hosts Logan NAUGLE and Zachary Jackson, featuring Malcolm Russell Nelson. Everybody, go with the theme song. I'm Malcolm.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Logan.
In the absence of light, darkness prevails. There are things that go bump in the night, Agent Myers. Make no mistake about that. And we are the ones that bump back.
The ghost of John Hurt.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
R.I.P. John Hurt. It's been a long time. So that means we're talking about the 2004 hit film Hellboy.
Heckboy, as we called it in my house.
Heckin' Boy. Yep. I remember being afraid to tell my mom that I wanted to watch Hellboy because I knew I was going to get in trouble for saying hell.
That was like even a thing when it came out. Yeah. That was like a whole thing when that came out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to get to that. So yeah, we're talking Hellboy.
It's a great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Enough said. There we go. All right. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Rate reviews.
Go to Patreon / Guillermo. He needs some money.
So 2004 Hellboy movie was directed by Guillermo del Toro and also written by Guillermo del Toro, which is nice. He came up with a story as well. He's very involved in his movies, which I appreciate. Starring Ron Perlman, Selma Blair, Jeffrey Tambor, Doug Jones, John Hurt, Rupert Evans, bunch of other people.
It's a full cast. This is
pretty stacked cast, which I like. It's a $66 million movie, which is pretty cool. Let's get into some facts about the movie, huh? So it came out April 2004. Now, first off, going into the making of it, movie's optioned. Hellboy rights have been optioned for a while. Guillermo del Toro grabs the rights, which he actually wasn't the studio's first choice. There were some other choices, including David S. Goyer, which would have been an interesting mistake.
Right. It's like I want to see what that trailer would have looked like.
And this is right at the time where Goyer was so hungry to direct stuff.
Yeah.
Like I remember like seeing all the interviews with him. He's just like, I just want to direct something, like I'm tired of writing. I want to direct, This is before the Blade Trinity disaster. So Del Toro gets picked. Mike Mignola, who created the character of Hellboy in the BPRD, really is very happy with that choice. And they both have one very specific person in mind to play Hellboy, and that is Ron Perlman.
Correct. Yeah. They say it in unison.
Yes, they said at the same time, Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman.
Now, that said, again, studio did not immediately pick Ron Perlman, because Ron Perlman was pretty old at that time. He was like 50-something.
Yeah.
So, who did the studio want? Do you guys know?
I looked it up. Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel.
I was going to say that as a joke. I didn't look
Vinny D, baby. He wasn't the only one who was discussed, though. They also kind of wanted Dwayne Johnson.
Which would have been interesting at that time.
And Nick Cage.
Oh, my God.
Nick Cage was up for it for a while.
See, Ron Perlman, Vin Diesel, the
totally makes sense.
Dwayne Johnson, I kind of get their similar wheelhouse body shape.
Nick Cage?
What?
Interesting choice. I actually feel like Nick Cage might have been up for Abe instead.
Okay.
There wasn't any clarification on that, but I feel like if Nick Cage was Abe-Sapien, like that would be pretty awesome.
Did someone see the first Ghost Rider and like, we like the commitment Cage has to like making blood packs and stuff. What is he gonna do with Hellboy?
He was a demon from hell. Now he's Hellboy. What?
That's the headline.
Fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Entertainment Tonight headline for it.
Yeah.
From Rider of Hell to Hellboy.
They have like the silhouette of Nick Cage with a question mark on it, like who? Yeah. When we get back. Now, when this came out in April, I don't think I saw it till probably a month after it was in theaters. It ran for 10 weeks, and I don't remember when I saw it I remember seeing it in theaters, but I don't remember like it wasn't that opening weekend or anything.
Yeah, I didn't see it in theaters.
Because it opened number 1.
Yeah, it opened number 1. Did you see the other movies that are out around that time?
Yeah,
Which
well,
is really interesting.
so it's weird because it came out in the spring at the beginning of April, so you have the weird like layovers from March.
Yep.
So you had Dawn of the Dead and Eternal Sunshine like opening 2 weeks before it. And the Lady Killers, that Tom Hanks.
Lady Killers.
Yeah.
Yep. The
Which I
Coen
didn't even-
Brothers flop.
Yeah.
Jersey Girl was still in theaters. Another flop.
And Scooby-Doo 2.
Monsters Unleashed, written by James Gunn, right?
Yeah.
The things that came out the same week as this, though, is interesting. Speaking of Dwayne Johnson. And I think we need to discuss that if this happened now, if this movie came out now against Hellboy would get demolished.
Yeah.
Walking Tall.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the other. I thought you were talking about Home on the Range with Sarah Jessica Parker.
No, you're right. That too. Oh, boy.
And then the week after Hellboy was The Girl Next Door.
Yep.
So
Great
it's like,
movie.
But I think that Timothy Olyphant. I mean, you can't knock that. I think it's interesting because like it's the only movie of its genre within like a month, like in that area.
Yeah.
It's like the only
before-
genre flick.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
before like the comic book boom thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, where there was a comics sort of movie every like few
3
weeks.
months.
Yeah.
And it came out before the summer blockbuster, so it kind of had its own breathing room, which I think helped.
That said, there's a lot of theaters that were against playing the movie because it was an interesting other side of the coin for another movie that came out a few weeks before and was still going strong the week it came out. That movie is Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ.
Right.
So those are two hot religious movies right there, technically. Hellboy because, it's about hell, technically.
Yeah.
And then Passion of the Christ because
God Boy.
Mel Gibson's a bad guy.
With Godboy.
Yeah, with God.
It's a good pull, Zach.
Hellboy versus God Boy. We have the box office results
On
this
Entertainment Tonight.
weekend.
Yeah, that was a weird time when the church was like, this passion needs to be in every theater, and
Yep.
and then there's the other side where everyone's like, this is too gratuitous, and
Yep.
yeah, that's a really weird time when
It's a weird time.
like the mob mentality, because it wasn't on the internet yet. It was all like literally like people mailing in letters
Right.
and boycotting theaters.
Exactly. It was a really weird time.
Yeah,
Anyway, the movie's good. So,
but then I guess
But then it turned out fine.
it doubled its budget, so
It's true. It did pretty good,
yeah.
which is nice. Especially for like all the love that went into the movie. Like Del Toro, like he's been a fan of the character for so long.
Yeah, it was his favorite
It was
comic
his favorite comic.
before he was ever up for directing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that helps with him working with Mignola to make it happen. However, like they both butted heads a couple of times.
Yeah.
And Mignola, I feel like Mignola won more than he didn't.
Especially watching this first
Especially
Hellboy.
watching the first Hellboy, it looks and feels like a Mike Mignola comic.
Yeah.
Like I've actually been rereading Seed of Destruction, which this is like loosely based off of.
Yeah.
And there are like direct lines out of the book that are in the movie, and just the shots and stuff. It feels like a Mignola comic come to life, which is interesting.
We'll get into the dialogue and stuff later, but yeah, it does feel like comic book dialogue
It's very
at
comic
points.
booky.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that Guillermo voiced baby Hellboy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I was like looking at the credits, I was like,
Yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah. Also, he and Mignola are in it too. Like
Yeah.
the Halloween party bit. Like is it-
Halloween costume's crazy.
Yeah, Del Toro is like a knight and Mignola is a dragon, I think. Like, which is weird.
Yeah.
I love that dorky stuff.
Yeah, it's so dorky, but it's cool. Like
Guillermo also did the voice of how does he say it? Samael.
Samael.
Samael,
Yeah.
the Hound of Resurrection.
The Hellhound.
See, I don't like that.
Send out the Hellhounds.
The Hellhound.
So the opening scene is set in World War II.
Yes.
And you see the British forces and American forces fighting Nazis.
Yes.
I actually forgot how long the intro scene was.
It's pretty long. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Which is really cool.
In my head, I immediately jumped to them already at the science, like with a whole opening. Like I forgot that there's any like kind of lead up to that, and
Yeah.
it was funny. It's like, oh wait, this is a longer scene than I thought. Yeah.
For some reason, I thought this intro was just like they go there, they see Hellboy, that's it.
Right? Yeah. They like find him.
A whole like setting up like Krogan and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rasputin.
I just like saying Krogan.
Krogan or Cronin?
Is it Cronin?
Release the Cronin. Yeah.
Sure.
It's Cronin. You know, you're right. It's Cronin.
Because Krogan is an alien from Mass Effect. Remember that?
Krogan.
Oh,
The big toad.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Cronin. It's Cronin.
Like Cronenberg.
Cronin.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sound effects in this movie.
There's a lot of. We're gonna
There
get
are.
to the sound
Yeah.
because there's a certain thing about the sound that I love in this movie.
So they're in World War II.
So they're in World War II.
In Scotland.
Yes. And we see young Broom with the British forces, and he's kind of like he gives one of the guys like a cross, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, "You're gonna need." He's like, "Just take this. I know you don't believe or whatever."
Yeah.
He's like, "What are you religious?" He's like, "I believe in many things." Or something.
He's got like a box full of rosaries and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So I thought the young Broom, also like the young John Hurt, looks a lot like him.
Looks and sounds a lot.
Yeah,
like
I was
him.
gonna say, and it sounds like what he would have sounded like.
I was trying to see if just John Hurt did the voice dub on that, and I couldn't find anything about that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds just like how John Hurt sounds in the movie.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Kevin Trainer is the guy who plays young Professor Broom.
Yeah, the opening scene is really cool. I think it does a good job, which is really interesting because then cut to later when you see Captain America and they do a World War II scene, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like kind of the beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love how after he offers the guy the cross, the guy like immediately tells him like a pistol would be better.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The opening scene has some like odd acting in it from that guy specifically.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
But it's enjoyable.
Him
still.
and the G. Willikers guy.
Yeah. It's like they heard, it's a comic book movie.
That guy is way too much.
Gomer Pyle.
Yeah, he is. He's just Gomer Pyle, man.
They
it's weird.
you know, he had one line and he wanted his screen time. So they eventually get to this science weird site where we meet Rasputin.
Yes.
And the Kraken.
Yes, Cronin. Karl Cronin.
Yes.
David
Hitler's
Cronenberg's
number
The
one
Fly.
assassin.
Yeah. He hops in the portal, comes out a fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good setup. I mean, it sets it up for he's trying to open the portal. He has this weird gizmo on his arm that looks like a giant fist almost.
Yes, it looks
almost like
very
foreshadowing
much like
too.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I wonder what that would be. And then the army defeats him. The portal closes. Rasputin gives his like second in command, the lady, immortal life.
Yeah. Elsa.
And then we see everyone else kind of die.
Yeah.
His,
And he gets sucked into the portal.
it's super brutal too.
Which is really, like the globs coming off of him, and then like
Then he gets folded
just
into it.
folded in. Yeah.
The
It's
glob
terrifying.
thing was weird because they don't ever use that again as like effect that happens.
No, and that's bad CG.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad CG
There's
in
some
this
very
overall.
questionable CG in this movie.
I do love when they open the portal and the light gets sucked in. You see like the monsters in the crystals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really
that's cool.
spooky.
Oh, you mean like from Thanos' lair,
Yeah.
right? Where we see the Chitauri like
I'm sorry, what's
toilet
a
snake
Thanos?
thing.
Then Broom is like, okay, that portal was open way too dang long. I think that's a direct quote.
Yep.
And he's
Says,
like,
"Yo, dog, this portal bish was open way too wide
for too dang
for
long.
too dang long, my dude."
And then he gives the shaka bra and tells them to sweep the area. And that's when it cuts to... Actually, before that, there's two of the Wilhelm screams that like happen back to back.
Yes, the one of someone getting folded into the portal, right?
Uh-huh.
Someone going into the portal.
And then there's
one
like
of
an
the random
explosion,
guys.
and it's
Yeah.
immediately
and then
another...
there's immediately,
Yeah, they drop the grenades.
Yeah.
He screams before the explosion happens to him.
Yes, that's the worst part. Yeah.
And like the Wilhelm scream is very iconic, so it's really easy to tell like when it's there.
It's one of my favorite movie games is to point out when the Wilhelm scream is.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's interesting when some people alter it, like they make it sound further away or like they compress it a little bit, but it's still there.
No one ever deepens it though and makes it like, ooh. That was good.
I've been practicing my different Wilhelms. In case I ever get that call.
I call that one a Jonathan Wilhelm. Do you want to hear a Trevor Wilhelm? What is this? You're right. What's happened?
I feel like usually I keep this on the train.
What happened to us?
Are we in hell?
Boy. All right. We need to run through this so we can start talking about the movie.
Oh, man.
They do a sweep, and they're like, "Oh, there's something over here. It's like a
red monkey.
Yeah, it's like, I saw it. No, they're like, it's a monkey. Like,
a monkey.
it was
monkey,
red.
it's red.
It's red.
And they're like, what's that in his hand?
He's got a weapon in his hand. He's like, I think that is
is
his hand.
And then it turns out he loves Baby Ruth.
Yep.
And he's a little heck boy.
Yep.
And he grows into a hell man. They never get to that. They never address that.
Need someone to put that on their Tinder profile, like ASAP.
Yeah.
Went from being a heck boy to a hell man.
So John Hurt, Professor Broom convinces the army not to kill him.
Yep.
Little Hellboy, voiced by Guillermo, jumps into Broom's blanket arms. I imagine his arms feel like blankets.
Yeah. No, he
Even
has a
if
blanket because he asked for a blanket.
Yeah. But I also just imagine.
He does have blanket hands.
Yeah.
His arms are made of wool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that, and it would kind of smell like a cigar because of his voice. Like, it just smells like... Yeah. Anyway.
Hellboy.
So that's how they find Hellboy.
Yep. And credits.
Or lack thereof.
It's just titles.
Yeah.
I love the opening title card and like going around the BPRD symbol. But we're going to talk about this now. The thing that I think this movie has that most superhero movies don't, it has a killer score.
Yeah.
Specifically like a killer theme. Like the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. The like score to this movie,
This
whenever
movie-
it comes in, it's great.
It rocks.
Yeah.
Marco Beltrami did a great job on the score for this movie. It is super memorable. For the last like 6 years, so I haven't seen these movies in a while. And for the last like 6 years, I've had that tune in my head and couldn't remember what it was from.
Really?
I genuinely couldn't remember what it was from. And then as soon as it started playing, I was like, it was the Hellboy theme.
Yeah.
Like, dun, dun, dun.
And that's
So
something that
good.
like the Avengers and more notably like the DC universe lacked a soundtrack.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
Because like if it's not Hans Zimmer, then like most people
don't
care. I think the Avengers movies specifically
and Captain America
have
the
good
first
ones,
one.
and Captain America. Actually, all three have pretty good scores.
Yeah.
They're just like pretty subtle, but I
They have,
think
like,
especially like
notes.
Avengers, like the Avengers theme is really good, and they use that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like the Avengers was the first one where they relied more on the score rather than the soundtrack.
Then the soundtrack,
Yeah. So going back to that title sequence, it is just that. Like, I like that it's interesting.
It's very straightforward.
That there is no like Ron Perlman, no one's name comes up, and it's something that they talk about with number 2, that they keep that like all the names are off like the promotion, like title sequences and stuff. And I kind of thought it was cool. It kind of plays up the whole like it's this comic book world come to life more than it's about who's in the movie. I thought that was interesting. I thought
It's good stuff.
yeah.
It's a good opening credit sequence.
So boom, then we cut to the present time of 2004.
Yeah, exactly. To the BPRD. Oh boy, you feel that when someone pulls out a cell phone. It's a flip phone. You're like, whoa.
Retro.
So the movie really follows this kid fresh out of Quantico, John Myers, who Professor Broom specifically hired to come work for the BPRD. And so we really get to see how the BPRD works through his eyes, and get to see Hellboy through his eyes, and Abe-Sapien and Liz Sherman and all these characters.
Yeah.
He's like the audience surrogate.
He's the audience surrogate. Yeah. Which is a nice touch, but like low-key, like, I don't need him.
He is the worst character.
He's the worst character.
He's the weakest link because he's purposely there for characters to explain
just
stuff
to be
him.
me inside the movie, and I don't need that.
That's why I'm watching the movie.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Yeah. And he's also not very sympathetic.
No.
Like he's kind of just trying to date Liz the whole time, and I don't care.
Yeah.
And straight up, Abe-Sapien has to tell the audience, "Oh, he's pure of heart, everyone. That's why you should like him."
Right, exactly. It's like, guys, he's a good guy. He's gonna do some stuff, but he's a good guy. Like, yeah.
I would also say, so this is where my one of my gripes of this movie comes in is cuts to the present, and we go from score to soundtrack, which is very
Jarring.
2000s music.
Yep. Yes.
And it's jarring. It's jarring for like looking back and be like, oh, those songs don't age well, like just sound wise. Yeah. And secondly, for a Guillermo movie, a lot of his movies don't have like that type of soundtrack. It's usually a score.
Right. It stops after this for the most part, I think.
Yeah, there's like
there's
two songs that are like 2000 songs in the movie that kind of ruined the scene for me. Like, I'm like, no, just put a score. Like, just put an atmosphere.
Well, Blade 2 is the same way. I mean, that's just early 2000s Guillermo, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's also just early 2000s movies.
Right.
You know.
But it is a little jarring, especially like when I think about a Guillermo movie, I think about the atmosphere that he builds and hearing like 2000s like kind of weird just rock radio.
Rock.
Yeah. Other than that, I do love Myers' entrance because he goes down the elevator on the BPRD symbol, which it's such an iconic, like cool looking.
It's a cool logo.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's a real cool logo.
It's like the arm with the sword.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate like him going down on the thing, and they show the lift once in this movie, and they show it again in the second movie, but they still do the same thing of like the docking, like levers that lock onto the. I love that shot. It's just a nice little detail, you know, to show like, oh, this is how this works. It's just a little extra, and that's a very Guillermo del Toro thing of like, oh, let's just give a little extra. Let's show how this works.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So he's at the BPRD, and he finds out that he's the new handler for Hellboy, because Clay, Hellboy's former handler, just got hair plugs, and he's looking to get on that dating scene. You know?
I really like that Hellboy. And it's like, no, you look good, man. Like he's like super supportive of him. Like,
I really appreciate Hellboy and Clay's relationship.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty cool together.
And then when they cut to the scene of like, I'll never be Clay.
Yeah, exactly.
Myers is like, I'll never be.
That was a really good
Clay.
Rupert Evans. I'll never be Clay.
Yeah. The title scene also does the flashes of the newspaper, right? That's when we see
Yes.
Yeah. Once again, it's kind of like
and like the candid shots of him like that people have taken over the years, and
building
stuff.
up that he's kind of this
He's an urban legend.
Is he real or not?
Yeah.
And then you get the news scene of
Jeffrey Tambor.
what's his
Manning.
name?
Manning. Yes.
On the news saying like, oh well, I mean, why is it when we see these photos of the Yeti Sasquatch
out of focus?
Yeah. There is no such thing as Hellboy.
I really appreciate right before he says the line, he points to the camera, and like the guy who he's talking to points to the other one, and so he turns.
Yeah.
Again, nice little touch. Like nice little realistic touch.
He's in charge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like that's good. I like that.
But with those type of bits, once again, it kind of makes Myers like being the surrogate for the audience not necessary.
It's boring. No.
Yeah.
And they could have given him more direction like of his own.
I feel like he was like the studio made him add that character.
Yeah.
Probably.
Like, we read the script and we don't think people are going to follow this weird Hellboy demon. Like, how are we supposed to?
How will they understand what he is?
Yeah.
He's a Hellboy, but he's a man.
I like that this is how agents talk, apparently. Someone should have just been like, yeah, remember Men in Black? Yeah, that.
But they also had Frank the dog to explain everything to. We need a Frank the dog. That's Myers.
Should have just been one of the cats.
Honestly, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, so we're introduced to Hellboy finally. He's still got his love for candy bars.
Yeah.
And he also apparently just eats a ton, like 8 times a day or something like that. And he loves kitty cats.
Loves cats.
I I like the reveal of like his body and his face still in the shadow when you first see him. Like when Myers, as the camera looks up at him.
That's super cool. Oh, with him pumping iron?
Yep.
Yeah. Super intimidating.
And Clay's
Hella
like,
cool.
oh, he ages like reverse dog years, so he's only like 20.
Yeah.
Which totally justifies Hellboy's like impulsive actions and very emotional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was one like bit of throwaway dialogue that they needed to establish his character, but it totally works because then you go like the rest of the movie, you're like, okay, I get why he's immature.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he looks like Ron Perlman, which does not look 20.
Which does not look 20 at all.
And also, like, he lives in like what looks like a bank vault, so it's gotta affect him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a bank vault.
Like they don't let him go out at all, except for
meets
like
like
on
frat
missions.
house room of like college dorm.
Right. All he does is drink beer and eat food,
Yeah.
hang out with his cats,
And then they call him when they need him.
and call him when they need him.
So then Hellboy's kind of like ragging on Myers, and then they get the call to action, and he's like, "All right, action." What is it like? Has like the all right?
They're playing our song or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Because the alarm goes off.
Some
Like
cool
they're
guy.
playing our song.
Yeah. Some cool guy line.
Yeah.
Ron Perlman has a lot of cool guy lines.
He
in
does,
this movie.
yeah.
Ron Perlman's an actor that, much like kind of like Kurt Russell, you can give him any cheesy line, and he delivers it with like
And it
such
sounds pretty badass.
believability. Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
red means stop is a stupid line. But when he says it, I'm like, yeah! Yeah! Like,
Yeah. So then from there, we follow them on their first kind of case, and we get to see what this world is all about.
yep. As they're hunting down a monster called Samael. But they don't realize it's called Samael yet.
Until
Until, Abe looks it up. But, yeah, it's... was that before that? Yeah, okay. Okay, sorry. I got mixed up in my head. I didn't remember if that was before, like, Rasputin. Oh, we didn't talk about Rasputin coming back. That's a cool sequence.
Yeah, that's the actual opening.
that's
That's the actual opening of the movie. That's a cool sequence.
So this is On the Subject. It's a show about
right, forgot about that bit, too.
yeah. No, yeah, you're right. We do get right after the title sequence. When we're cut to the present. Before we jump to Hellboy, we
Before
see
we jump
that
to Hellboy.
the
It's like
literal
an
cold
Antarctica-
opening.
Yeah. Because of,
Ice.
I'm glad you remember this because this is my favorite part in the whole movie.
It is a great part of the movie.
It's not even that part. So like when they get there and like the Sherpa guy or whatever like
Yeah.
shows him, he's like, give me my gold.
Like, give me my gold. Yeah.
And then
it's-
they pay him. Then Cronin takes off his mask to reveal a mask.
Yep.
I love stuff
Which
like that
I
in movies.
love.
He-
Oh my!
He pulls his hood
God,
down,
do I
takes
love
off his
that.
mask, and it's
and
his
it's
Cronin
the
mask.
Cronin gas mask underneath.
Yeah.
So good.
It's that Baron Zemo bit from Brubaker's Cat,
Yeah.
where he pulls off like the face mask of like the actual face and has the purple sock
Yeah.
underneath. He's like, how does that work? Like, how?
So good.
That's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and then they kill the Sherpa because
Yeah, they kill
as
the
soon as you
Sherpa.
see that Nazi gold, you know it's not a good
Yep.
sign.
And I like him looking at the
Uh-oh.
Nazi gold and be like, oh crap, and then that's when he dies.
And he falls and bleeds into the
And bleeds into
summoning.
like this labyrinth of summoning, and
Yeah.
then as the blood like fills it up, that's when you get Rasputin popping from the middle of it, and that looks cool as hell.
Probably
drenched
the
in blood.
best like CGI transition because it's
Is
like
that CG?
it's like the blood is when he's first rising and then it switches.
Yeah.
They like,
Really?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. I was like, man, this looks good for now.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
That's a cool scene.
I just thought that he was just like in a pool of jelly or something, man, and they were just like raising him out of that pool of jelly.
So we see that Rasputin's two like right hands,
Yep. Ilsa and Cronin.
yeah, are still alive and they've resurrected him sort of in a way.
Yep.
And he's been circling through hell or something, presumably.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever was on the other side of that portal he got sucked into. Mm-hmm. And they're there to now finish what they started.
He's looking for the Tesseract.
Yeah.
He won't stop at anything to find it.
And if he has to, he'll do it himself.
He'll do it himself. It's true.
Then now we cut back to the first mission.
Yeah.
We cut back to the first mission. Yeah.
Yeah. So cut back to that.
Yeah.
They're at the museum.
museum.
What? Well, first they're riding in a dumpster truck.
Oh, yeah.
And we get the Hellboy line of,
Oh, yeah.
look at all these people, and I can't get anyone. No wonder we can't get anyone. We ride around in a dumpster. How am I supposed to get?
Right. Like, how am I supposed to get babes?
Yeah, and you see like a picture of Liz or something before
Yeah, it's
that
just
to
him
allude
fronting
to.
for. Yeah, because he has Liz on all of his screens.
Yeah,
Like he's a creepo for Liz.
yeah, he misses her, and then Abe is like, she decided to leave. You won't we have to respect that. He's like, I know you miss her, or whatever. And we see Abe-Sapien getting suited up, which is cool. Like the water tube neck thing, because you see him in the pool and you're like, how is he going to be out?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. Also, he likes rotten eggs.
Loves rotten eggs.
Which is really gross.
It's a delicacy.
It's so gross.
Yeah.
I know I can't smell it, but I feel like I can smell it.
You can smell it through the screen. It's weird.
Yeah.
So green.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Abe's a good guy, though. We should talk about the David Hyde Pierce of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
I remember...
I thought it was David Hyde Pierce as Abe-Sapien.
In the suit.
In the suit.
in the suit. No.
Because I didn't know who Doug Jones was when I
Okay.
first saw... I was 14, okay?
That's fair.
My cinema credit wasn't what it should have been. My cinema score. Yeah, so I thought, David Hyde Pierce was
actually, in the suit, which would be cool. It's interesting. They got David Hyde Pierce to voice over Doug Jones's voice, who actually did the physicality of playing Abe-Sapien and, was in the makeup and everything. It took, 5 to 7 hours every day.
Yeah.
The whole the scene of him in the tank, upside down, in the tank, in the
He's
healing
actually
tank.
yeah.
He's actually in that, and that was his birthday.
Yep.
And that was an 18-hour shoot on his birthday.
And David Hyde Pierce refused to take any credit.
Yeah, he refused to take credit because he felt like his thing didn't really contribute.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, I thought when I rewatched this, I thought that they changed it to Doug Jones's voice.
Back?
Yeah, I thought they changed it back. Because, there's no credit for David Hyde Pierce, but it really sounds exactly like how Doug Jones sounds in the second one.
Yeah.
Which in the second movie, it's him. It's his voice. It's not David Hyde Pierce anymore, which is interesting. And Doug Jones, he's a great act. He is what's it? Andy Serkis of
Guillermo
and physical
costume
costuming.
Yeah.
Monster stuff.
Have you guys watched any of Star Trek Discovery?
Just the first couple episodes.
Okay, so he plays Saru,
one of the aliens.
One of the aliens who is literally 8.5 feet tall, and he has to walk on these stilt things every day, and he's a main character, so there isn't a day that he's not on set.
Yeah.
And he has to do that all day. He has to get up from the captain's chair and stuff, and it's incredible. It is an amazing performance.
Yeah, I feel like Doug Jones, like you're saying, is kind of the practical effect version of Andy Serkis to CGI.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to talk about with this movie, though. It's a fun movie, and
It's just a good time.
it's a good time.
Let's get into the fights.
Okay, so the first fight is where we meet the Samael, this
Hound of Resurrection.
yeah, and
Son of Nurgle.
Yep. Cut off one head, 2 more shall take its place.
which they tell the audience a couple times that it's going to get doubled. They're like, "You shall rise again and again."
Yep.
And then later when he's
Each of you that fall,
2
shall rise.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we get it. It's gonna yeah.
But do you know that for each of the Samaels that die, not only does he come back, but another one comes back as well.
So 2 of them?
Yeah, there's 2 of them that come
Which
back.
you double.
Yeah,
it
so
every
what you
time.
do is you cut it and then you double it.
Yeah, cut it and double it. Yeah, so that first fight, he's like, Hellboy comes in like a bat out of hell
Like a baller, straight baller, son.
and kicks his butt. And then Abe's like, "No, you really need to stop cutting me off. I'm trying to have a conversation with you." He's like, "Can we just talk for
What's your
once?"
problem? You don't listen.
You don't listen.
That's why
really
Lizzie
wanna
left.
be your
Here's in the
friend.
second movie.
Yeah. I want to be your friend, and you just don't listen. And then he goes on to explain that, this dog is known for resurrecting.
Yeah, by the way, it comes back.
It's kind of its thing.
By the way, it always comes back.
Yeah. And so he's like, "Oh, crap." They get into a longer fight. Myers shows up. Right? Is that all this first fight scene? Yeah.
Yeah. Maya shows up.
Yeah,
So
shoots
go
at it.
fight.
Yeah. It goes from the building to
To the outside,
The
which is
street,
where there's
yeah.
the Halloween parade because it's Halloween night.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he puts a tracker in it.
Yep, shoots a tracker into it. Samael escapes, rabbits to the sewers.
Yeah, after biting Hellboy.
Yes, you're right.
And putting a little like gross sucker creature on him.
Which looks really gross.
So that's the part that confused me. So it has like a little baby gross sucker thing that puts eggs in you, but it also lays eggs itself. Because then later when the eggs, and
so it's like the spike in its mouth attaches the sucker, which puts the egg inside.
Yeah.
And,
but then when they lay the eggs in the water,
lays eggs.
Yeah.
Just a redundancy system.
Yeah. Because again and again it'll rise.
Exactly.
Right.
Two.
Okay. 2 of them. Double it.
Double the pleasure, double the fun.
And then they learn more about this thing. John Hurt's old.
We
cut back. John Hurt's dying because he's old.
And he has cancer.
He has cancer.
Yeah. Old man cancer.
Yeah. So they get in a fight and they head down to the subway system where Hellboy loses, or he kills Samael, and he walks away, but he like disintegrates and a green flame comes out of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the museum. Abe uses his post-cognition, show Broom exactly what happened, and you see Cronin and Ilsa, they come in and they basically release Samael out of a statue. And Rasputin gives him that like ability to multiply.
Yeah.
He like breathes the flame into him.
Yeah.
And then they realize that Samael is laying eggs, and so he's trying to find like a damp, humid place to lay eggs.
Yep. Right. Which is why like his Hellboy's arm would have worked, and then like they use that as evidence.
Sewer system, perfect place. Yep. So Hellboy takes the whole team down there.
Yeah.
Of his best dudes, and
including
Myers.
Clay.
Yep, Clay's there. Clay's still worried about those hair plugs.
He's like, no, you don't look like a Barbie doll. What's he?
Yeah. But he does. Like, those plugs looked really bad.
Yeah, they look like some Sharpie dots on his head. Yeah. Abe jumps in the sewer so he can find out where all these eggs are. We see he fights one of the hounds in the water, and then
it gets messed up.
Yeah, Hellboy runs off to chase another one. Clay's kind of left there to guard the well, and
that's when your boy Cronin appears and kills Clay, and then pretends that he's dead. Yeah, so which I love that bit of him like stabbing Clay. Clay like lies down. He like Cronin like takes his sword and like lays it down next to Clay,
unwinds himself,
and then unwinds himself to give himself like a seizure.
Yeah,
and then just like lies there dead. Like
yeah. So then Broom takes them both back. And Abe, who is then in the water healing.
Yep, he's in the back of the tank.
Yeah. And
he gives an autopsy to Cronin while Hellboy is off trying to get to Liz.
Yeah.
Who's in like a mental institution.
Yeah.
Because when she like freaks out, her pyrokinesis acts up and destroys a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and we see Rasputin triggers that one time. So then Myers is sent to get her back.
To get her to the BPRD. And then Myers and her go out for coffee.
Right.
And so Hellboy's tracking them.
Which is the other part of this movie that doesn't quite work. It's the silly love triangle.
Yeah.
It's completely pointless. But I appreciate that that Liz realizes that it's pointless.
Yeah.
Like,
and
she's like, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? Like,
you see more like character moments from Hellboy more than you care about the love triangle.
Yeah. Oh, Hellboy with the kid was awesome.
Eating cookies, throwing rocks.
Yeah. He's like, do you want some milk?
Why am I listening to you? You're 9.
Exactly.
And then
you gonna eat that? Kid's like, no.
Good. So then while that happens, spies. And John Hurt Broom is doing the autopsy, we see Cronin he comes back to life. We find out that guy was a weird self-mutilating Nazi guy who like made himself immortal by putting gears
and stuff. Yeah.
From like steampunk power. And then he hears Cronin coming down the steps.
Great shot. of him coming down the steps. I'm like watching him the entire time as he's walking down the steps very gingerly.
And then you hear
Great
Rasputin's voice.
Yes.
And he's like, it all makes sense.
And he turns, and you can tell, like, the way that they blocked it is that he was always sitting right behind Broom.
Yeah.
But Broom had no idea, and so when Broom turns, then you see him just sitting there on the couch, just like willy-nilly. It's pretty tight. It's good movie tricks.
Rasputin ghosting everywhere is kind of cool. It's
Yeah.
like out of the shadow.
Rasputin's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, he's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, like in the institution when they close the door and he immediately walks out of the shadow.
He walks out of the shadow? So
like some
cool.
Yeah.
vampire stuff.
What a cool guy.
So basically, then we finally realized what the real plot of the movie was, which was to direct Hellboy into his rightful spot as kind of the key to hell.
Yeah.
The key to the portal that we saw in World War II with the mechanism Rasputin had built. Hellboy is the true key, and that hence him getting spit out of the portal. And Broom had kept him alive, which was a quote like mistake, but then he's like, no, he's not a weapon, he's my son.
He's my son.
That's his true name. And he's always had a choice, like Hellboy, he always wanted to give Hellboy a choice.
Yeah.
So then Broom gets killed by Krogan with like a silent stab, which is the one time his sword doesn't make the shing shing noise.
Yeah. Especially like the lineup too of
Yeah.
him like lining it up like perfect.
And then
like,
the faraway cut.
Yeah, that's and John Hurt's body just flopping to the floor.
Yep.
Again, Guillermo's a master of like shots. Like when he wants to do a good shot, he's got it.
Yeah, like just before that, when Cronin is walking over to his suit, like there's like slats in like the wall where you can see just blinks of him as he's walking. It's super creepy.
Yeah, it's really creepy.
Because like then it goes into the opaque glass.
Yeah.
Like his face is gross too. Just like he removed his eyelids
And his lips.
like and his lips. It's like
Yeah. If it was without the suit, he looks like a Silent Hill creature.
But with the suit, he looks really cool.
Then we cut back to like Hellboy returning and Liz and all of them returning. Broom is dead. They
Great funeral scene.
Yeah.
And again, that's when the score like really kicks in. And boy, oh boy, is that like gorgeously shot, and like the score is just muy caliente. So good.
Because like I said, there's only those two tracks that like suck from the 2000s, and the score is actually really good in this movie. And just the atmosphere, like just the sounds that they use, like the clanking of Cronin's swords is like over the top, but so good for a Guillermo movie.
It's so good. Yeah. It's
the same with Abe-Sapien's hands, like sticking to things.
Yeah.
A little too much.
Yeah.
Interesting sound mixing in this movie.
But basically, he was being led down a path so that Rasputin could put him in a corner, and that it wasn't really about the hounds. Like the hounds are just kind of I guess an added benefit of helping take over the world.
Yeah.
We get like to this final battle where they're going to go back to the sewers and destroy all the hounds. Liz, Abe, Myers, and Hellboy all go there. Right? Yeah.
Is that in the sewers? I thought that was in Moscow.
That's in Moscow. Yeah. That's,
Oh, no,
that's in Moscow. Right. Right. Yeah. Because they go to Moscow because
There's a note.
There's the note
on Cronin's, or like in Cronin's body.
Yep. That Broom was trying to decipher, and it has an address like Sebastian Fumora,
Kevin
16 Plaza,
Windlecrum.
or whatever. Yeah, Kevin Windlecrum, 16 Plaza, whatever.
Yeah.
And so they track that to Russia.
Yeah, it's like a cemetery in
It's a
Moscow.
cemetery, and so they're trying to find Rasputin's grave because that's where the key is.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. That's
Which
where
leads to my favorite bit in the entire
and
movie.
Manning goes with them to that.
And Manning goes with them. Like, they bring a whole, like, team. Like, a whole giant team.
Yeah, 'cause
Wait, so when do
Manning's in charge now because Broom is dead.
when do we get the Liz explosion of the hounds? Was that earlier?
No, that comes later.
Okay. See, that's why
It's like right before the
that
end.
comes that comes right before the end.
Because it's in like a watery area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the like maze that is Rasputin's grave. So they get to the grave, and they're like, how are we supposed to find like Rasputin's gravestone like here? Like how
Let
are
me
we gonna
get a
do this?
tour
We're not
guide.
Russia. And so Hellboy's like, let me go get a tour guide. So he has like a little pocket thing that kind of looks like Jack Sparrow's like compass. I hate that I just referenced
But
that.
way cooler, guys.
But way cooler.
Listeners, way cooler.
Way cooler. And it didn't commit any crimes of Grindelwald. So he goes to, so he gets it like clicking, and he gets to a grave, and he like barrels into this grave, and then performs like rites on a body, and then brings the body back to life. And that body is voiced by Guillermo del Toro.
Yep. Another one of the like 4 voices Guillermo does.
Which is awesome. And so he just walks over to everybody else in the BBRD with this thing like with a noose around his neck and just like slinged over his back, just talking to him, telling him where to go. It's the weirdest thing.
That's my favorite version of skeletons, is like the weird, like the flesh is still kind of on. And
Yeah.
it's
It's just like dried and petrified flesh. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. And it's all like,
Yeah.
Gibberish. If I had
Let's go, you
legs,
red
I'd
ape.
kick your ass.
Yeah. So cool. I love it. So they find the
entrance.
and they all get split up because
It's
like,
a labyrinth.
It's a labyrinth and it has booby traps and stuff, so they all get split up. I love that Hellboy and Manning are together. Because then they kind of get to hash their beef, which is nice. And in saying that, I mean, really, like, Hellboy just saves Manning's life a couple of times.
And then Manning's like,
Manning
all right,
saves
my
his
bad.
life by teaching him how to smoke a cigar properly.
Yeah.
Or how to light a cigar properly. Which bugs me that in the second one, he's still lighting it with the Zippo. Anyway.
Still doesn't respect him.
He still doesn't respect Manning, like, which is an interesting choice. So they all get split up, and then they gather back together, and are under attack by a whole slew of Samael.
Right before that, they get the Cronin fight that like Hellboy saves Manning
Oh
from.
yeah, that's right. Good fight.
It's a good fight, and also because he's like, "You killed my dad."
Yeah, he's like,
and
you
just
killed
like
my dad. Your ass is mine.
and just like
yeah.
destroys him immediately.
Yeah. Oh, him like punching his face in with the right hand to Doom.
And you get the
awesome.
dents in the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's got like my favorite joke when he slashes at Manning and he's like, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
He just doesn't quite get it.
This is not how we do things civilly.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot about that. So, what is wrong with you?
And then when Cronin falls into the booby trap, that like hole.
Yeah.
Spike pit.
Yeah, the spike
And
pit.
Hellboy grabs the giant gear to like throw on top.
And then
of
Manning
him.
throws his little ones on top.
It's just like yeah.
I was still holding these. Like, yeah. There's some really good bits.
Some
like,
really good bits
throughout this movie.
Really good bits. So they all gather together and fight a bunch of Samael. They're losing. It sucks. Liz goes nuclear, right? She explodes, burns all of them, burns all the eggs. Great. Unfortunately, she happens to knock out everybody. When everybody comes to, they're captured. Hellboy's in like this giant lock thing that has like this ancient script around the right hand of Doom. He can't get out of it. It's in chains.
It looks like what you throw tomatoes at in medieval
stock.
times.
Yes,
Yeah, the stock.
it literally looks exactly like
But it's
that.
like an enchanted stock.
It's like an enchanted one.
If
Myers
there's
is
like actual
tied up.
name written on it.
Yeah, which is cool. It has his actual name written on it. And Myers is tied up, and Liz is on like a slab, like looking like she's about to be sacrificed. And Rasputin comes out, and Ilsa's just beating the crap out of Myers, which is the most satisfying moment in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, because those hits look like they hurt, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And so Rasputin says, "Listen, like, we got to do this, man. Open up the portal. You're gonna be a king, man. Let's do this."
He's like, I don't care. I don't
Let's open
want
up this
to.
portal. He says, "I don't want to." And so he says, "Okay, I'm gonna make you." And so he takes Liz's soul from her, like soul sucks her, and
Like Mortal Kombat style.
more just
Yeah.
sucks that soul. And so Hellboy says, "Okay, to get her soul back, like I will do this." And so Rasputin's like, "Say your name, say it." And so he says his name, Anung Unrama, and then the chains like break off, and he's free. And then his horns grow, and a little crown of fire is like right in between them. Really cool visual. And he is just full on bad guy now. And so he goes and he unlocks the door, which allows the great god Ogdru Jod to come out. It's this giant tentacle thing that's terrible, and it breaks out of the
crystal
hellscape crystal thing that was in, and it starts coming down, and then Myers, that good old boy,
pure of heart,
throws the rosary beads right at Hellboy, his father's rosary beads, and says, "Remember who you are.
He died and gave you a choice.
He gave you a choice, man."
And then Force Ghost John Hurt shows up.
Exactly. Just in disguise, just remember.
Yeah.
Remember.
Much more, yeah. Exactly.
Scarier.
Raspier and
It's a
scarier.
little scarier, yeah. Yeah, it's Mufasa after a few like pints. You know?
Yeah.
Just remember.
And we get this cool scene of Hellboy going like, he does remember.
He does remember.
He snaps
And
his
he
horn.
grabs his horns and snaps them off.
So good.
So ever since I first saw the movie, that's always bugged me. This is going to sound so petty. And I think it's a good choice for the movie, but I hate how it looks. When he snaps them off, it's uneven.
But that makes sense.
It does make sense. I just hate how it looks.
Yeah.
It just drives me crazy. I just want to file them down. I just want to make them even. Like it drives me crazy. That's all. So he does that. He's like, man, screw this, dude.
Stabs Rasputin.
Stabs Rasputin with one of the horns, which is badass.
Yeah. And then he throws them
Hella
both down.
badass. Throws them both down. He grabs Liz. Myers is free. They start to rabbit. And Rasputin's like, "Oh, you killed me, but you let my god free, you know." And so,
And he's like,
out of him comes the giant tentacle thing that was living inside of him.
Yeah, we see a bad CGI hand of he's like, it was inside me for all this time. Yeah.
Growing stronger.
But then they all run, and then Hellboy's like, keep Liz safe. And then he's going to run back
He's
before
gonna
he
do the
can.
sacrifice play with the grenades because they had belts of grenades, but the timer's broken on it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna pull it. So he goes, or he's about to go, which I love that bit too. That was in the trailer too, but like I really like that bit of like Myers being like, "Are you sure you got this?" And I was like, "How big can it be?" And then right as that's happening, like a tentacle comes, wraps around him, and just pulls him away, which is terrifying. So Hellboy allows himself to get eaten by the thing, sets off the grenades, it explodes. Hellboy's fine, he's free.
Because he's fireproof.
Because he's fireproof, and he's not. And then Hellboy goes back to where Liz and Myers are. Liz isn't breathing. And so Hellboy leans in, whispers something sweet in her ear, and she comes back to life.
Yep.
And, she asks, like, "Oh, what did you say? Like, how I heard you." And he's like, I said, like, "Hey, you on the other side, let her go. Because for her, I'll cross over. And then you'll be sorry." And then they make out and credits. Which, fun thing, the whole bit with the Liz and Hellboy relationship, that's not in the comics.
Yep.
But Guillermo del Toro was super into the idea of a woman on fire kissing a guy who can't be burned. Which I like. That's the last shot of the movie. But that's why that happened.
And while that's happening, Myers gives a
really good speech.
Yeah. And
what is a man?
And then we get we get credits.
Credits.
Yep.
And then you get the mid-credit stinger of Jeffrey Tambor still there. He's like, "Guys, I'm still here." Like,
yeah, because he kind of left.
Yeah, they kind of just left him. It's really funny.
Which builds up for 2 why he's so sour still.
Yep.
Why no one learned their lessons.
He's funnier in 2.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So going back to the movie with CGI had problems, but all the practical effects are amazing, including the Hound.
The Samael stuff. Yeah, that fight in the subway is awesome.
And because you can tell, like, there's certain parts where when Samael's like crawling on like certain things that's CGI.
Yeah.
But then the fight between him and Hellboy. It's really good.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene like in like the Moscow part when the bridge they're on starts to collapse and he's like running while it's falling.
Yeah.
It's all practical, which is cool.
Yeah, which is nice.
Because he's like on a wire or something. So
that's why you can see like the
it's
little
kind of cartoony.
Step. Yeah.
It's like a Looney Tunes thing.
But I'd rather see like the practical effects that way than CGI.
I think it fits.
Another thing I love about this movie is Mignola, like, was a huge inspiration for Guillermo.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of Guillermo's favorite comic books before he ever directed it. And then Ron Perlman, in getting chosen, read all the Hellboy books.
Read everything.
Yeah, to prep for it on top of working out and everything. But then he kind of fell in love with it, and he fell in love with working with Guillermo.
Yeah, they have a really good relationship.
Yeah, and cool. This movie is really, I think that's what made it so successful, is it's there on the screen. It feels like everyone's enjoying this relationship.
It's a real labor of love movie.
Yeah.
Everyone except for Rupert Evans seems to be having a really good time.
Yeah.
Rupert Evans just kind of seems like he doesn't know why he's there.
Yeah. And the audience agrees.
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of my favorite part, is knowing that they all seem to really want to commit to making this, and everyone's enjoying it and having a good time. Yeah. And then Ron Perlman cracked his rib.
Yeah, hopping onto the train.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Because it was actually coming at him at 45 miles.
It's actually going at 45 miles per hour, and he hops onto this train.
Jesus.
He was 55 years old.
Yeah.
Ron Perlman, insane. And then tried to keep doing the scene, and people saw he was clearly in pain.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, Ron, we gotta cut. What was going on?
Yeah. Because Ron Perlman's pretty old for this movie. John Hurt's even older for this movie.
Yeah,
and then he had a second life as old man in movies. So, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Yeah. He went on Harry Potter, Doctor Who. He went on as this old man, continuing in all these movies. Yeah, I mean, he's not jumping around, but favorite moments.
Mine is, besides the mask reveal thing, the him bringing the corpse back to life.
Yeah, it's him bringing the corpse back to life. That's so cool.
The whole movie, actually, both movies, they remind me of a D&D campaign brought to life.
Yeah,
because it's pretty
modern stuff, which is cool.
Because you got your boss who gives you your job, which is your quest you got to go do.
Yeah, you're right.
The Samael Hellboy fight, probably one of my favorite, in the subway. That whole thing
is a good fight,
and he's holding the cats.
It is a good fight. Yeah.
I love when he's holding on to the train, and the conductor or the security guard starts smack
hey,
and everybody cheers
I'm on your
for
side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the conductor's yeah, I got him. Yeah, there's a lot of really good comedy in this movie.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed watching this and getting to rewatch it and go back. All the practical effects hold up. CGI doesn't look so hot, but it's one thing I think Guillermo's really good at is practical effects, working with people with passion.
Yes,
his whole aesthetic fits really well with Hellboy.
Yeah.
It's the perfect match.
Yeah, his sensibilities work with it really well.
He said that it was Will Eisner and Mignola that kind of inspired him for comic verse stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the only things that don't work for me are some of the dialogue feels like comic dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
When you adapt, we talk about, especially on the show, we talk about adapting comics into movies and how Scott Pilgrim and Watchmen do a good job of that's what a comic come to life looks like.
Yes.
And this movie, for the most part, is a movie using comic property, but then the dialogue sometimes is corny and
I think it's because it doesn't have the timing that a comic has.
Right.
Where you have the "I'm fireproof, you're not" line, and it comes off on film as "I'm fireproof, you're not." But in a comic, it'd be panel 1, I'm fireproof. Panel 2, panel 3, stuff happens. Panel 4, you're not. I think it doesn't have the right pacing for the comic lines.
Right, and because when you're sitting down reading a comic, there's the cheesiness is you're accepting, and as you're turning the page and everything. But on the screen, you kind of want it to feel more real.
Yeah.
To suspend your disbelief, I feel like. Yeah. The uncanny valley is a little.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really like
it's a good time.
And like I said, some of the cheesy dialogue really works.
Really works, yeah.
And is a lot of fun because that's another part. The Guillermo Hellboy is jokes and lighter humor and stuff. Yeah,
he's a funny guy.
Yeah,
he's got good jokes. So, how many right hand of dooms would you guys give this movie?
I'd give it a 7.5.
I'd give it an 8.
I'd give it an 8.
Yeah, and
I'd give it an 8.
So when the movie came out, that's what it received. Like the critics gave it like a 7, and then like people gave it an 86. So I mean, I feel like that's where it actually got reviewed the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with the critics on this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like I really like it. I just get a little bored at the end, and I just don't like Myers like at all.
I really, one point was knocked down because of Myers. I think Myers is kind of just the worst.
Liz is a little boring.
Her acting in this is a little flat.
It's like stiff.
Yeah.
Interesting. I actually think she's better in this one than in the second one.
I think she's way better in the second one.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also just think the character of Liz is a kind of boringly written character.
I think she's boring in the movies.
Especially
which is
when...
a bummer, because I like Selma Blair a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
And especially with that like power set and type of character, there's a lot you can do with like the turmoil. And when they show her flashbacks, she's clearly tortured, but she kind of feels just apathetic, and they don't ever justify why she feels that way. Like,
right.
Like they're telling you that she feels like bad and doesn't want these things, but then that doesn't translate. Yeah. All right. Well, that's been Hellboy. For more podcasts and content, you can go to geeksrising.com. We are part of the Geeks Rising like podcast network, and there's a bunch of shows on Geeks Rising that you can check out, including another one where we talk to creators. You have Bandra Says podcast and the Podcasted YouTube channel reviewing Mike and tech review. And then you have Sunshine and Power Cuts about connectivity, empowerment through Sunshine and Wellness.
That's like good.
That's like good. So go check that stuff out. You can follow us also. Links for everything will be down in the description below. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye.
See you.
What makes a man a man? A friend of mine once wondered. Is it his origins? The way he comes to life? I don't think so. It's the choices he makes. Not how he starts things, but how he decides to end them. Thanks for listening to this episode on On the Subject. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it, subscribe, rate us on whatever podcast source you're using. For more content or to reach out to us, follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at On The Subject. And for more details, links are in our show notes. Thanks again.